I think it's important to remember that drowning is the leading cause of death in children ages 1 to 4. This is a really serious topic. It's a really important health topic, and I would argue probably one of the most important topics that we would cover when we talk about summer safety. Drowning can happen in seconds. It can happen to anyone, and it's usually silent. People think there's going to be a big splash or they're going to hear someone shouting. Kids can fall into the water, and you don't hear anything when they're underwater. So it's really scary, and it is serious. And the important thing to remember is that it's preventable. Drowning deaths are preventable, and there are so many things that we can do to prevent drowning. One of the first things people think of is swim lessons. I'm going to get my kids some swim lessons. That definitely helps. Lots of studies have shown that any measure of swim lessons is going to help kids be more aware and safe around water. That being said, it does not replace direct parental supervision or adult supervision. If you are in a group, if you're out for the day and there's multiple adults, you can take turns sharing that responsibility, but there should be a designated adult whose sole job it is to supervise the children when they're in the water. That adult should not be consuming alcohol or other drugs that would make them impaired in a way that they may not be focused on the child. Anything that's going to make you sleepy or drowsy or dizzy, they shouldn't be doing any other activities. The adult should not be doing any other activities that's distracting them from their job of watching the children in the water. A lifeguard on duty is great. It does not take the place of direct supervision. Ideally, you're close to the kids that you're supervising. I like to be within arm's length of my kids. When they were small, if I could be, I'm in the water with them. I am within arm's length of them, so I can grab them if anything happens, if they're struggling. The other thing you can do is get a life jacket. Any kind of approved flotation device. I would not rely on like pool noodles or like inner tubes. But for toddlers, those flotation devices that keep them upright in the water so that their head is up out of the water, those are great. The other thing to be aware of is if you're in a place where there's open water, a pool, a lake, a pond, really any body of water, it's great if that body of water is enclosed by a fence with a gate that locks. If you're at a house that opens up, like a rental house, lots of people go on vacation, they're at a rental house, and maybe it opens up onto a pool in the backyard, and you can get directly from, let's say the patio or porch right to the pool. If you have small kids, you need to be aware of making sure those doors are locked. If you're not outside supervising the kid, it's not swim time anymore, everybody's moved inside. Make sure that you're taking precautions to restrict access to the water after you have stopped swimming and you are no longer intending on supervising them in the water. The other thing to be aware of, if you are in a natural body of water, a river, the ocean, anything that's got moving waters in particular, there are extra hazards in those areas. Rapids, rocks. Kids can have a foot entrapped in a rock. They can get stuck. You can fall into a deeper area. In a lake, you may not know how quickly the depth is going to change. You may go from being in a really shallow area where the kid is fine to stand to a really deep area very quickly. And if you're not familiar with that area, that can happen in seconds. And so you really need to be very cautious when you are particularly in those natural bodies of water. And I think it's a great time to put a kid in a flotation device. I am probably extra cautious. I am more cautious than most, but when my kids are out in open water and they're on swim team, they've taken swim lessons, I still make them wear a life jacket. Because you just don't know when they could get into trouble, or there could be a current, or they could get pulled out into deeper water, or they could get tired. All kinds of things can happen, and so it's just better to be on the safe side. So as many of those things as you can do to prevent drowning, the better. If you can do all of them, great.